stand strong in what I know. Stand aside from the ego. And as your days turn into night, through the breeze I hear you cry, and I believe in you.
Hey guys, I want to make a tricky video for myself, and it's one I've never actually seen anyone talk about, and it's about my own ego, but it's also about the effect YouTube has on people with regards to controlling the ego. Now, of course, you need an ego to use YouTube, and if you understand, if you really meditated a long time and you've started to unravel human nature, then you'll see this very quickly, because humans tend to not speak from a real place. And a good example of this is if you are to meet somebody. I heard a good analogy from a guy, I can't remember his name, but I'll parrot what he said, I'll repeat what he said. If you meet someone that you like, then a lot of people will look inside themselves to think of the thing they think that person wants to hear. Now, the reality of the situation is that what they could do is say to that person, I'm trying to think of something to say to you because I like you and I want you to like me. That would be being completely real and organic and telling the truth. What tends to happen is the person will say something about the weather or about what they're wearing. Basically, they think of something that that person wants them to hear. They become fake. Now, the problem with YouTube is, which I try to avoid, is a lot of people plan videos. So planning videos is okay, but you then have an agenda. You want the people who are listening to your video to get something from you or to be interested in you, etc. But it means that you sacrifice your organic nature to some degree. Now, I try in YouTube a lot to pick up the camera and speak from my heart. I've tried that in the past with my spiritual videos, and I never trust a YouTuber who edits and cuts themselves, because I feel like it's the intellect planning it. I could write a script and record 10 seconds, cut, 10 seconds, cut, 10, and it would probably be much more stimulating and exciting for the viewer. But what I don't want to do is add to this hunger for a false reality that a lot of people have on the planet. You see it, you know, you have these masters of screen illusion like Casey Neistat, who knows how to work a screen. He knows how to be an illusionist in that sphere. Because of that, you see many people are more drawn to the false reality. They prefer that because they've been programmed into that style. They find this world not exciting enough, so they want well-edited things. They want lots of B-roll footage, and it can set the mood, and it's art as well in a way. But at the same time, when so many people gravitate towards that, you see that people are hungering something more than this reality, which is not necessarily a healthy place for us to be in. So YouTube has that automatic effect on a person, whereas they lose a level of their organic nature because they're having to plan. But also humans in general tend to do that. Like I say, when you meet people, very rarely do we speak openly. Now, I'm good at it actually, and I have been for a while, because I just got sick of the crap when I was in engineering myself, and I just said, why am I not just speaking from the present? And that's why sometimes I'm very silly with people and spontaneous with Fritzy, etc. It's just more organic for me to speak on what's there instead of saying things that I want the person to hear. Now, that said, I also have this other problem where I feel like I'm representing God. Remember, all I've achieved only happened because I surrendered to God. Now, going from a working class guy from a family that's quite poor to having no success, to being, if anything, the opposite of success, having a suicide attempt, which was pretty bad on my past record, drug addict, and you know, being in the newspapers for getting into altercations involving violence, etc. It was just in this sphere where, in this area of England, where it's very cold, as you can see, I I failed. I completely failed at life. I don't know how else I can describe it. I'd failed. So then, after bashing my head against it, trying to make it work, and realizing that I was using so many dishonest things in my life, like dishonest business dealings, and I was working as a salesman so you could bend the truth a bit to get what you needed, and selling drugs and all of this stuff. I just surrendered to God. And when I surrendered to God, it took a while, but things started to go in the right direction. And I started to be successful. And then all of a sudden, everything I was touching was just, I was on a roll. Everything was working. I mean, look at everything that happened. And I'm saying this as humbly as I can. Because after you've done all this failure in your life, and then all of a sudden you start to succeed, the most difficult thing about that is shutting up about it. It really is. You want to, you're proud of it. You want to be like, yeah, look what I did, look at it. But the thing is then, I could stop that by not involving myself in promoting what I've achieved with God. Now, I used to do that, bearing in mind I lived in Africa, in Tanzania. I had no social media outlets. I had no intention of having social media. I didn't even have a personal Facebook page. And I used what savings I had helping people, and that was my plan. I said, that's what I'll do. This is what I'll do. But when I ran out of money and people were still asking me for help, what do I do? So I turned to a Facebook page at first. And then after about a year, I opened up a YouTube channel because I could see that that's the direction social media was going. And I saw I got such good response from Facebook, and it was helping so many children. After the first year of Facebook, 111 children were out of child labour. And it's addictive. It was so addictive every week to be like, hey, another 2 children. It was so addictive to do good finally in my life. It was amazing. Like, it's the best feeling ever. Now at the moment, all that's a bit lost in all the chaos that is trying to get everything working. But back then, when it was a bit more simple, it was the most satisfying and beautiful thing to look at the computer and go, that child was sponsored, and get happy about it. But in among all of that, if I wanted to ignore my success and thus keep control of my ego in a normal setting, I could do so because I could shut up about it, because you're not going to go telling people all over the place about it. But as I said earlier, I feel I represent God. And I also feel a need to speak of the success I have, to promote the fact that God has achieved all this, and to promote the fact my life only happened that way because I surrendered to God. But, and it's a big but, when you're promoting that, or as the Bible says, go forth and let your light shine before men so they may see your good works. As you go forth and let your light shine before men, and even though I always, in Tanzania, I don't let people thank me. I always say, it means a lot that you're thanking me, but please thank God, because God has brought me here. This is all God's show. That even when I'm on YouTube trying to share God's message, my ego's coming into it, naturally, because I'm promoting my success, but then I'm trying to do the disclaimer that I only succeeded because I surrendered to God. But I still succeeded, but with God, and only with God. And without God, none of it would have happened. None of it. None of it. And thus, this affects your ego and your spiritual practice, because you're externalizing internal things in a very big way. And I feel a need to promote the success that God has had through working with myself, but also I feel a need to try and keep my humility and shut up about my success, because I see my ego flaring up because of it. Now, there's 2 things there. Is YouTube's an outlet to speak about yourself, and that's a difficult thing, because it's an outlet for speaking about myself, and I always say I and myself, one of them's an imposter. So when I see other YouTubers, I see first of all some that are very organic in their heart, but unable to find the organic nature in their presentation, because they don't pick up the camera and just spurt it out, they plan it. And that is a false level of human behavior that exists all throughout society. And YouTube has a very profound effect on a human being, because all of a sudden you've got all this focus on you and all this attention on you. And for myself as well, I get a lot of praise for what I do. And staying grounded within that is a difficult task, and I'm sure, I'm positive other YouTubers feel the same way. I just haven't seen anyone talk about it. And YouTube creates a very new thing for a human being to deal with. And this thing is that you have this external audience, and you also have your internal needs of purity, and somehow having to present to that external audience makes your practice to engineer your internal ways to be in line with the best version of yourself to be very polluted, because you're having to externalize so much. And you fight more with your ego because of it. And when I put down my camera for 5 or 6 days, then it's a bit of a relief at times. But at the same time, I also am burdened with this burning want to share again. And so I do. So YouTube has had a profound effect on me, and I'm still growing and learning as I go forward, and I'm not perfect by any measure. I've also got this knowledge, which it seems very few people on the planet are carrying, and God has chosen me to be a messenger for that knowledge. That being the knowledge of the sacred secretion, along with other messengers online as well, Bill Donahue, Santos Bonacci, and I'm sure there are others who I don't know about. But having that knowledge, which you know, undoubtedly, as it says in the Bible, Satan will go after the seed of Christ. The Christ seed is the secretion. It will go after putting people into the lower nature of itself, and you know it's the solution to many of the problems on the planet, is every human being able to understand that and live in a way that allows them to become a highly evolved human being, so we don't have all the problems that we have. We don't have beaches strewn with litter and plastic like we have at the moment in the name of empty profit. Just to give an example that's in front of my eyes. You would have a planet that gears everything in a direction that's more organic and in line with our mother, with the planet. When you have that on top of you as well, it's a lot of different things going on inside you. And it does make, it undoes a lot of the spiritual practice I've done, and I have to find new ways to tackle that. But I'm conscious of it, which is why I know I'm safe. I'm conscious of sometimes my inability to shut up about the success, but I'm also conscious that sometimes I feel I must do it to represent God, but I'm also conscious that sometimes I do it too much because my ego gets involved. And I think with YouTube, it's not spoken of, but how powerful, and I'm sure maybe celebrities as well, but I think YouTube's a different baby altogether. How powerful that is, the effect it has on you, the effect it has on your life. You know, you feel locked in, you can't have a holiday, you feel you've got to keep your audience retention. That affects you in many ways. It means you have to keep your carnal mind open. I can't go on a 2-week silent retreat like I'd like to in the bush and not talk to anyone. I have to get something on there, you know. It's very, very bizarre level of dynamics it brings into your life. Let's put it that way. But what I do know throughout all of this is the only way I ever find the ability to speak from a more grounded position and to try my best to keep hold of that humility. Humility is an impossible thing at times, because the second you observe yourself and admit you're humble, it's gone. The person who says they are humble obviously isn't humble, because they're saying they are. They're promoting the humility which lacks humility. So it's a very tricky thing, and the only way I found you can come into the state of humility is away from the words, because words and language is a linear thing which drags us away from the present moment, drags us away from God's world ultimately, drags us into the carnal mind. And we need it, but we don't at the same time. And thus I find the only way I can get truly humble is fasting, which is a struggle for me because I'm sick. Time alone, which is a struggle for me because I've got a baby and so many children. So ultimately now, what I've come to the the conclusion of with regards to it is I just have to lean on God and ask him to use as much energy as he can spare to keep jolting me internally, to remind me always that my success is only so because it's embedded in his desire. And so long as I can hang on to that every single day, I should be okay. There will be times my ego roars up. It's fine, I'm human. You know, I recently made a video where loads of people said, wow, how egoic are you being in this video? But I was speaking against, I was directing what I was saying towards a certain pocket of society, and to do that I required ego. I simply required it. But I could have done it in a more healthy way. So that's a prime example that I'm human, you know. I'm human. But this is why I have a battle with my ego, because unlike people who are not in my position, you know, it's not that easy. When I went to Tanzania, I was so humble. I said, I don't want anyone to even know I'm here helping, and nobody did know. I didn't even post on anything, you know. Nobody knew what I was doing. It was just there for over 6 months, just helping people. And I loved it. It was probably the best time of my time in Tanzania, aside from having Fritzy and everything and the new children in my life. It was just such a beautiful time for my relationship with God, because it was just me, God, and service. And I loved it. I absolutely loved it. But now I find myself, as a man, being more organic. I'm able to speak freely about what I'm feeling in the present moment. If I meet someone new and I like them, well, I've got a wife, but to give that analogy, if I were to meet someone new and I didn't know what to say, I would say to them, I'm sorry, I'd love to start a conversation with you, I just can't think of anything to say. That would be how I do it. That's exactly how I would operate now. I wouldn't think, oh, what do they want to hear for me to... I don't do any of that anymore. So I've got that part pretty much plugged down. But YouTube is trying so hard with me to undo it. It's not trying, it's just an organic side effect of doing YouTube. And that's another thing I want to work on. And I don't even know if other YouTubers are conscious that it's happening to them, but I know it is, and I can see it happening to them. And like I say, I see it more clearly with those who have to edit, and they cut, because they're so conscious of what they're doing. You know, and I used to kind of feel the same. I'd start a video and stop and try and do it again. It was so inorganic. And now I just rock up and I have an idea. You know, like this topic's in my heart and it's burdening me. Let me put it out there. And this was one of the topics, my ego. So I think I've covered some good points. And if you're a YouTuber, I'd love to hear from you. See if you experienced this, or if you've got any more experience than me on how you found any practices to come around it. I think I found a good way to get around it for now. I'm just struggling because I have to promote, I feel. I have to promote what God achieved through my life, because that's what it's all about for me. But I have to do that without my ego getting involved. But I'm human, like I say. Failed for 27 years and then succeed for 6 years. Of course, bloody difficult to stop talking about it. So, but I think God allows it. So I'm gonna get off because the sun will set soon, and it's very, very cold down here on this beautiful beach. But I have to climb up a cliff to get off here because the tide's in, so I don't want to do that in the dark. I love you all, and I'm going to try and make 2019 a bit more real. If people are really viewing me as a spiritual teacher, then I'd rather they view me as a student who shares what he's learning. And somewhere in me, my ego had started to embrace the idea that I was a teacher. I don't want to attach to such ideas anymore. I don't attach my ego to ideals like that as best I can. And that was something I did attach my ego to. I'm going to be a spiritual teacher. No, I'm a student. I'm a student of God. I'm a servant of God, and I'll share what I learn along the way. That's how it will be. As real as I can make it. I'm not going to cut it and go like too many others. And I say that not as a bad way. I say that to try and get you to realize when you're being completely inorganic in your videos. Just be organic, just speak. And do it when you meet someone. If you don't know what to say to them and you're thinking of what to say, tell them. I don't know what to say to you. I'm thinking of what to say, but I can't think of it. They'll probably laugh and admire your vulnerability and your strength to be so vulnerable, and you'll probably start a very beautiful friendship. If not, you'll exchange some false information about the weather, about their clothing, about whatever, something on TV. They'll exchange it back to you and you start a phony relationship from day one. And I don't want a phony relationship with my YouTube audience. I don't want that. It's really hard to work out how not to do it, but I think I'm starting to find a way with it. I love you all. Bye. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, as it really helps us to grow the channel and with it help more children here in Tanzania. Also, don't forget you can support our work by sharing with children in crisis here, be it sharing for a particular need or even sharing one-on-one support for education, housing, food and medical care. It can be done for as little as the cost of a cup of coffee a week back in the West after all. Just visit www.sharetanzania.co.uk to find out more. Lastly, remember you can also support us via Patreon, www.patreon.com/featherstail, and help keep us here in Tanzania to continue our work. The links for the website and for the Patreon are in the description box of this video. Love and light, guys. See you soon.